It's that tension, this interesting tension between balancing ambition and gratitude.
Yes.
And, this fear that, well, if I pat myself on the back too much,
right,
what if that stops the drive? It's coming from this place of fear, this fear of not being enough, this fear of failure.
Yeah. I'm
going to continue to disprove it. And I don't want to let up, because that's the only fuel that I know.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be 65 in a few weeks, so I have a little perspective on this. It doesn't mean it's the right perspective, but I think when I began with a fuel, which was like, I'm going to show them, I had 4 fathers growing up. It's a pretty rough background. My mom was a very intense character. A huge part of who I am, I owe to her, because she challenged me so strongly. I became a practical psychologist to deal with things. Really loving woman, but when she mixed alcohol with prescription drugs, she was very violent, and I had to protect my younger brother, younger sister. So, I had these experiences early on that were so painful, and then she picked my 4th father out of the house. She's a fairly powerful woman. He went back east. He was the one who I loved the most. And then she chased me out of the house with a knife on Christmas Eve. And I know she wasn't going to kill me, but I wasn't going back in that place, And I remember coming out of the beginning, it was anger that drove me. I'm just going to show you type of thing. But that fuel doesn't last. And then the next fuel that people tend to use is, I got to succeed. But there's a little fear underneath that's driving them, which is like, what if I don't? Versus a knowing, it's like one of my original mentors, Jim Rohn, used to have this phrase. He used to say, Tony, don't worry about it. If you give your all every day, your gifts will make room for you. And it's like having a knowingness that things are going to be fine. And then there's the next level, which is you start to know who you are, and you're not trying to prove it to yourself or other people. And it's just, you just want to help. You just want to do things. And so now it's the difference between what I would call push motivation and pull, right? Push is, I'm going to make this happen. And it takes tremendous willpower. And I know you have plenty of willpower. I do as well. But there's a limit to willpower, but there's no limit to pull. Pull is when there's something magnificent that you want to serve, something that you've got an obsession for, to create or to do or make happen. And that you don't lose that energy. You don't lose those components, and you're able to laugh and enjoy along the way, as opposed to, oh, by my God, if I don't keep doing this. And I used to believe that too. It's like, I got to be so intense every moment. And then my wife's been a huge help in that also. When I remember I met her, I was like, I'm a serious mofo. I want to change the world. I work 20-hour days and stuff. I want to laugh more. Some days I wish I hadn't said that to her, because she's so crazy, but she's one of the great gifts of my life. And I surround myself with so many brilliant and funny people that my life has, the joy and the achievement.
I think that's a balance a lot of people are trying to play with as well. They like to take things seriously. They care about their work. They're earnest, right?
Yes.
Earnestness being the bravery to take your emotions seriously.
Yes.
And this can end up sapping the fun and the play out of life.
Yes.
So you want to be treated like a serious person, like an operator, like someone that's here to actually do things and make a dent in the world. But you also realize after a while that if you're doing it so tightly, it creates this sort of brittle fragility around whatever you're doing. And when you look back, you have this series of miserable successes that you kind of gritted your teeth through. And you go, well, okay, I got the outcome that I wanted, but really what's the outcome I'm trying to achieve? Well, it's an enjoyable emotional state.
Yes.
What I'm trying to do is feel good in the moment as myself. And so, winning, achieving the thing, financial freedom, the business, all of that stuff is a reliable route toward getting you that. But there's a much more direct route, which is to enjoy the thing. So there is another tension here, I think, between seriousness of pursuit and joy and ease in the moment. And finding the balance between those two is something I think a lot of people struggle with.
That's true. It's an art. It's chemistry, right? And you don't get it right in the beginning. And, it takes time, and you have to have the intention to want both. I remember when I met my trainer, Billy, years ago. He's one of my dearest friends. And he's brilliant. And he said, what do you really want out of your training? He goes, because what I find is I don't know why you even need me. He goes, no one needs to push you. I got to push you back. I got to stop you from going that hard. He goes, I said, no, I'm not looking for motivation. I said, I want to be specific. I want to produce very precise results. But I said, at this point, I think I've been working out like a crazy person. I suppress my oxygen. I do, you saw what I do. It's just ridiculous. I'm a biohacker, right? I have to be. I got to go on stage and do 12 to 13 hours and hold 13, 14, 15, 20,000 people's attention for 4 days, right? When they won't sit for a 3-hour movie somebody spent $300 million on, you know? It takes a level of energy. I'm not just standing there talking. I'm running up the side. I'm doing these things. So I said, I don't want to give up any of that. I need that power in me to be able to produce. But I said, I want to have fun. He says, what does that look like? And I said, well, I don't know. I think, you know, when I was a kid, I used to play racquetball. I said, maybe for the aerobic, instead of just running, maybe we'd, you know, do something that's fun to do. And he goes, that's great. Let's do it. So we called around, no racquetball courts anywhere, but squash. Do you play squash?
Yep.
Yeah. So you can appreciate squash is awesome and it's more strategic and a hell of a lot better exercise than, you know, racquetball is. So I got into playing squash and it was like, wow, it added a whole nother dimension. And then that led to, you know, at this stage, if I go someplace and I'm going to be kind, which I want to be, you know, it's not a 20-minute drive and 20-minute back. It's 20 minutes, you know, in and out. I'm sure, you know, pictures and, you know, just connecting with people and taking care of them. And so, man, I don't have time for this. So that's how this happened down here. You know, it's like I imagine
there's a racquetball court somewhere near us or a squash court.
Squash court
is just over
right.
there. Yeah, brilliant.
So it's like, you know, I came here and said, we're going to build this. But it's just like, so I built this whole place for fun. I mean, if you came here, you probably came by slide, I assume.
My first delivery to a podcast via slide and gravity. Yes, correct. Yeah.